Welcome to a new episode of Cheaters Always Cheat. Like, subscribe, and share to stay connected.
I'm a 30-year-old guy who was engaged to a 27-year-old woman. Let me give you some background. Let's call her Sue, not her real name. We met at a friend's engagement party, and man, she was stunning. Blonde hair, tall, skinny, and beautiful. Plus, she had a killer sense of humor, and we hit it off at the party. We started dating, and I knew from the start that she was the one I wanted to be with forever. I popped the question and asked her to move in with me, but she hesitated. I figured maybe she wanted to keep her independence, which I respected. Most of the time, I ended up staying at her place since I had a house in the suburbs that I almost paid off, and she lived in the city. It was convenient, and I didn't mind spending nights at her apartment instead of driving back home. She was a nurse, so sometimes I had to stay alone in her place when she had late shifts. So at first, she wasn't ready to move in with me because she didn't want to give up certain privileges. You see, she didn't have a car, and getting around would have been really tough for her. She actually wanted me to move into her place, but I'd already pretty much paid off my house's mortgage, so that wasn't an option. Plus, her apartment was too small for both of us. Then, COVID happened, and everything changed. Because of the lockdown, she decided to move in with me. She worked as an essential worker, so she was out most of the time, while I had the luxury of working from home as a software engineer. Because of the pandemic, we had to put our wedding plans on hold. To make things even more complicated, my dad had flown in to be with us for the wedding, but he got stuck here. Luckily, he didn't have to go to work, so he ended up leasing Sue's empty apartment since she wasn't ready to let it go yet. You know, it's important to mention that my dad and I weren't really close back then, but we were okay with each other. He left my mom and me when I was still a teenager, just so he could be with his secretary, who happened to be just 6 years older than me. It hurt at first, but I eventually got over the resentment since he didn't skimp on child support. He just wasn't interested in being a part of my life. While I was in college, my mom passed away, and he actually showed up at her funeral. He said he would still take care of my needs and that I didn't have to leave my stepfather if I didn't want to. My stepfather was fine with me staying, and my dad continued to pay for my expenses until I finished college. We would meet up whenever he flew in, usually for dinner or lunch. But most of the time, he was with different women who seemed to be around my age, or even younger. I didn't really like it, but I also didn't care that much. I figured it was none of my business, you know? Oh, and by the way, he wasn't married or in any committed relationship during this time. So let me start by giving you some background on my relationship with my dad, before I continue with the story. When the lockdown restrictions were lifted, Sue made a big decision. She wanted to quit her job and make a career change into tech because she was burned out with her current work. I was making a good six-figure salary, so I could easily cover both of our living expenses without any issues. I wanted to help her out, so I offered to cover her living costs while she paid for her classes herself. She moved in with me, and I even set up a workspace for her right next to mine so she could attend her classes while being close to me. We spent a lot of time together, and sometimes we'd even have my dad over for dinner. Interestingly, my dad decided he liked staying in the same city as me and had no plans of leaving again. It was cool with me because he wasn't getting in the way of my life. Later, I found out the reason was that he had a new girlfriend he was pretty serious about. To give you some background, my dad is a wealthy guy. He inherited some major shares from his parents and waited until his late 40s to sell them, and they were worth a ton of money. He also had a high-paying executive job in a big multinational company, so he was making a lot. Once I settled into my new lifestyle, I got a promotion at work. Even though I still got to work from home mostly, I had to go to the office sometimes. But no matter what, I was always happy to come back home to be with Sue. We were pretty intimate and having a lot of fun during our free time. Sue started feeling restless being at home all the time, so after we talked it over, she decided to get a part-time job back at her old workplace as a temp nurse. The good thing was that she didn't have to take as many shifts, but she was getting paid better than before. She also eased up on her online classes, but after about 3 months of working again, she started complaining about being too tired, and she really looked exhausted too. I tried to help her by giving massages when I could and suggesting she take some time off work to rest, but she said she couldn't because there was nobody to cover her shifts. I didn't push it and let it be. Then she started coming home with expensive stuff she bought, but I wasn't suspicious because she loved shopping and had always sacrificed to buy designer clothes and shoes before we got engaged. I thought she could afford it since she didn't have to worry about living expenses. Gradually, she started taking more and more shifts until her schedule was just as busy as before. We hardly had time together as her days off and my work days didn't match, and she'd leave for work while I was still asleep and come home just before I went to bed. Despite all that, we still found time to be intimate. About 6 months after she started working, we began planning our wedding. She reduced her workload, saying it would allow us to focus more on the wedding planning. I didn't have any issues with that and supported her plans. I was too swamped with work to be deeply involved in the wedding preparations, but I trusted her decisions. So one night, she comes home and drops a bombshell. She's pregnant. I couldn't contain my excitement. I went all out, buying her a bunch of stuff and treating her to a dinner with my dad and his new girlfriend, who were just as thrilled as I was. Sue decided to quit her job to be a stay-at-home mom, and I supported her decision completely. By then, I had already finished paying off the mortgage and was in a great financial position to provide for my family. Life was going well. I'd come home from work, and Sue would fill me in on her day and all the wedding preparations she was making. I noticed that my dad was spending a lot of time with her, in a good way. It seemed like they were getting along great. What I didn't realize was that she was keeping things from me. When the phone bill arrived, I noticed she was constantly on the phone with him, exchanging lots of texts back and forth. Turns out, they were covering their tracks and I had no idea. Now that I know what was going on between them, I feel incredibly dumb and angry. I got suspicious when Sue kept coming home with shopping bags from fancy stores. It didn't make sense since she wasn't working anymore, and she wasn't using my money either. When I asked her how she afforded all those things, she gave me vague answers that set off my BS detector. So I decided to do some snooping. Once she realized I was suspicious, she stopped bringing new stuff home. But I noticed her with new bags and shoes I hadn't seen before, which made me realize she was still buying expensive things. I couldn't take it anymore and checked her purse, where I found a receipt from her recent shopping trip. Shockingly, it had my father's name on it as the buyer of those things. When she came home, I confronted her about the receipt, and she said my dad needed help buying a gift for his girlfriend, and she gave him advice. As a thank you, he got her those expensive things from the store. Her explanation kinda made sense, but something felt off. There's no way my dad would drop $5,000 on my fiancé just for helping him pick a gift. I started connecting the dots and realized that my fiancé and dad were finding a way to be together almost every day. He was spending more time with Sue than with his own girlfriend. I didn't have concrete evidence, but I was pretty sure something fishy was going on between them. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. First, I sneaked a GPS tracker into Sue's car to see where she went, and I secretly set up cameras all around the house. In the first week, I didn't catch anything unusual. She went to the doctor's and the supermarket, pretty normal stuff. But I knew it was just a matter of time before they slipped up. I finally got the chance I was waiting for when Sue left her phone at home while running to the store. I knew her password, but I never snooped around without a good reason. But this time, I found out she had changed it. I returned the phone, acting all normal, and decided to wait and observe for another week to see if I could figure out the new password. Finally, I got it, and I waited for the perfect moment to get a hold of her phone. That moment came when she left her phone on the coffee table and went to take a bath. I checked her messaging app, but there was nothing useful there. So, I decided to go through her social media apps, and that's when I hit the jackpot on WhatsApp. She had been deleting her chats with him, so I didn't find much there. But what I did find shocked me to the core. She had sent him explicit pictures of herself just earlier that evening, with a message saying, "All yours, Daddy." My father hadn't replied yet, but it was enough to confirm my worst fear. My own dad and my fiancé were having an affair behind my back. The next couple of days were a living nightmare for me. I couldn't handle it anymore, so I decided to take a break from work and go camping to clear my head. But the night before I was supposed to leave, I saw Sue's phone lying around again, and an idea struck me. I installed an app on her phone to spy on her messages in real time and set it up to get notifications whenever she used WhatsApp. Then I packed my things and headed to a city hotel where I drowned my sorrows in alcohol all day. The next morning, I woke up with a hangover, but a bit of clarity. If I wanted to confront this situation, I needed solid evidence. I kept a close eye on her messages in real time, and saw that she had texted my father almost right after I left the house. After a couple of hours, I watched through the cameras I'd set up and saw my dad's car pull into my driveway. And there it was, the heartbreaking scene. My soon-to-be ex-fiancée welcomed him with a hug and a kiss. She was even wearing the lingerie set I had bought for her on Valentine's Day, the one she hadn't even worn in front of me, but she put it on for my father. I couldn't just let it slide. Both of them needed to face the consequences of betraying me. I secretly recorded their affair and kept the file hidden on my cloud, making sure Sue had no reason to check so she wouldn't know I was on to her and my father. I decided to stop drinking and started plotting my revenge. We still had 3 months until our planned wedding date, but I had to end things before then because I couldn't imagine marrying her again. After my break, I went back home on the 3rd day as planned. There was no trace of my father, as if he had never been there. Sue greeted me warmly and tried to initiate intimacy, but I turned her down. Just being in the same room with her disgusted me. That night, while she slept, I stared at her, wondering how she could lie to my face so easily, and why. I looked around the room and noticed new things, stuff I wouldn't have seen if I wasn't paying attention. There was a new winter coat she couldn't have afforded on her own, and I figured my father must have gotten it for her. As I watched her sleep, I had dark thoughts of wrapping my hands around her neck. The temptation was strong. I dug into her other messages and found out she had been talking to 3 other rich older guys before my dad got involved. When I checked her phone, I found videos of her doing sexual stuff with those men. The last time she had contacted them was before she moved in with me. Now it was clear that she didn't want to move in with me initially, so she could have the time and privacy to sleep with these guys. This discovery explained why she took on extra shifts and why she rushed to go back to work after retiring. It also made sense why she kept bringing home expensive purchases. The sad part was that I had always bought her costly gifts, hoping she'd stop starving herself because I knew how much she liked nice things. I took screenshots of all the messages and printed them out, keeping the videos I found hidden along with the one of her with my dad. The first step of her revenge plan was to become financially dependent on me. I pretended to have a change of heart, telling her I'd pay more attention to her and the baby. I made sure to cover almost everything she wanted, trying to make her feel secure. I'd go out and surprise her with things I knew she liked, while also telling her to stop spending her own money and just ask me. She agreed, being the greedy person she was. I wondered what she told my father, but after that, she stopped bringing new stuff home. I convinced my dad to buy a new apartment in the city so he could spend quality time with his girlfriend, who was also clueless about his cheating. My dad even said he was going to propose to her, and I pretended to be happy because it added a new twist to my plans. While I was spending more time with Sue, she still found moments to text my father and meet up with him. I could see everything happening in real time, but I didn't say anything. At that point, I wasn't even heartbroken anymore. I just wanted to put them through hell for what they did to me. My dad got a new apartment and moved out of Sue's place. I convinced her to sell the apartment and invest the money for the long term. I suggested she buy some crypto, but it was a shaky coin that might go belly up soon. Surprisingly, she agreed, and I helped her with the whole process. Taking control of her finances, I discovered that she was almost completely broke. Apparently, instead of getting money from her sugar daddies, she only received gifts. And since she stopped working, she had no income at all. I kept gathering evidence leading up to the wedding. My dad asked if he could propose to his real girlfriend during the rehearsal dinner, and I reluctantly agreed. The printouts of their conversations had piled up, forming a thick book's worth of evidence. I went to a guy who ran a publishing company and asked him to turn the printout into small books, making around 30 copies. That way, I could give them out at the wedding rehearsal, and there would be enough for everyone attending, including Sue's family and friends. I compiled everything into the book, which I titled Sugar Baby Sue. I was sure it would make a big impact. I spoke with the wedding planner and arranged to include the book in the gift bags for everyone at the rehearsal dinner. The wedding planner read the book and got all flustered. I warned her not to say anything to my soon-to-be ex-fiancée if she didn't want to lose her bonus. I also asked her to cancel all the wedding bookings since it wasn't happening and to keep things low-key. Thankfully, I managed to get my money back from some of the vendors we had hired for the wedding. I created a video montage from all the videos I had and added special effects to make it more impactful. I sat down with my father's girlfriend and spilled the beans about everything that had been happening between the man she loved and the woman I loved. She was devastated and wanted to break up with him right away, but I pleaded with her to wait until I had completed my revenge. During the wedding rehearsal, when my father took the microphone and started talking about marriage and how Sue and I would be a perfect couple, I secretly signaled the DJ and my father's girlfriend. While my dad was talking, the DJ prepared to play the video I had sent him. When my father presented the ring he was going to use to propose, the whole audience gasped. He thought they were shocked by the ring, but it was actually because of the video playing in the background. Everyone was horrified. At the end of the video, I made a little speech, telling them to check the special book in the gift bags. The party ended with Sue's parents yelling and screaming at her. I left without her and went back home. While we were at the party, I had Sue's belongings arranged outside the house and changed the locks and passcodes so she couldn't get back in. I think she managed to get a ride home because I heard her knocking on the door late at night. The next day, I sent her a long message making it clear that I wanted nothing to do with her anymore. I told her not to use the child as an excuse to stay in my life. I said that when the baby was born, she should have her lawyer contact mine so we could do a DNA test. Only the results would determine if I would ever talk to her again. I didn't bother texting my father. I blocked them on social media and changed my phone numbers. I even sold my house and bought an apartment in the city. I cut off all contact with them completely. Update. It's been 9 months since then, and Sue contacted me through my lawyer. The baby was 3 months old, and she wanted to do the DNA test. The results came in, and I am not the father of the baby, and neither is my father. I can finally remove her completely from my life. Story 2. Let me start from the beginning here. Yesterday, I had a meeting with my fiancée at our wedding venue to finalize some details, as we're getting married in 4 months. We drove there separately since she was coming straight from work. Towards the end of the meeting, she mentioned that her friend needed a ride home, and she asked if it would be okay. I didn't think much of it since I know her friend well, and it wasn't too far from our place. Once I got home, I tried to reach my fiancée for the next 3 hours, but she didn't answer. At around the 1:30 mark, I texted her friend to check if everything was all right. I was really worried. Finally, my fiancée came home and said sorry for taking so long. She hung out with her friend for a bit before heading back. I was okay with it but asked her to keep me informed next time. But then, her friend replied a few minutes later saying, "Sorry, I couldn't make it to the venue. I didn't see your fiancé tonight." I was confused and asked her why she would say that. She replied saying she didn't know and walked away. At this point, I was really suspicious and felt something was off. I've never done this before, but I checked her phone records. Yes, I did it and I don't regret it. I noticed that when she went outside, she called her friend who texted me right after she went out. I also saw a 1-hour call with a number I didn't recognize while she was on her way to the venue. I started asking her various questions about the rental place they went to and other things. She answered quickly, and her explanations seemed legit. I thought, maybe I'm overthinking this. I should calm down and sleep on it. This morning, I asked her to show me the text from her friend asking her for a ride, and I said I would apologize for questioning her the night before. However, she refused to show me. Then I confronted her about the call I saw on her phone while we were driving to the venue, and she said it was the friend she picked up later. I knew right then she was lying because I had checked her phone records, and it didn't match. She then changed her story, saying she needed to meet a coworker named Michael to discuss a patient. I was confused and asked why they couldn't discuss it over the phone. I was getting really suspicious at this point since we've always been honest with each other. I asked her to show me the texts with Michael, but she refused. I questioned why she wouldn't show me if there was nothing to hide. I even asked if she was having an affair, or if she didn't want to be with me anymore. She paused for a moment, and then started listing all the things she thinks are wrong with me, like working too much, not spending enough time with her, and not listening. I was shocked at this point, because all of this was news to me. I started putting things together and realized something fishy was going on. I insisted on seeing the texts again, and after about half an hour of convincing, she finally showed them to me. They were crazy, filled with sexual content, and talking a lot of crap about me. It was clear that she wanted to be with him, and that they were basically in love. She just started this job 1.5 months ago, and he's her co-worker, much older and divorced with multiple kids. Meanwhile, I have been financially supporting her while she got back on her feet, and she was working extra hours to avoid getting a part-time job. We live together in our house with 3 dogs and a horse. I can't believe this is happening, especially since we were supposed to get married in 4 months. I'm feeling lost and don't know what to do. Any advice would be appreciated. Update. So, I finally had a chance to talk with her tonight and sort things out. But, once again, she tried to put the blame on me for what she did. She justified her cheating and lying, saying it was because I didn't communicate well and didn't listen enough. According to her, if I had been a better listener, she wouldn't have started talking to that guy. She complained that I spent too much time in the office working and not enough time with her. I tried to explain that I was putting in extra hours at work to support her and the family financially while she was struggling, so she wouldn't have to get a part-time job. But she said she would rather have gotten a part-time job, which doesn't make sense to me at all. She thought since the whole thing was short-lived, just 1 week she claims, and they only made out once, we could move past it. But when I brought up the texts where she was talking trash about me and having sexual conversations with him, she changed the subject, and I got nowhere. I told her that I'm not the reason all this happened. She went too far without considering the consequences or talking to me about her feelings. I explained that I can never trust her again, and this mess is all because of her actions. It's her choice if she wants to try and blame me for all of this. Towards the end of our talk, things calmed down a bit. I told her, "Listen, we really need to figure out what to do about the house we own together and our 3 dogs." After some discussion, we reached 2 options. Either I stay and buy her out, or we sell the house and find new places. As for the dogs, we still need to decide who gets which one. That's where we left things tonight, and I'll keep you all updated on how things progress. I'm curious to know what you all would do about the house. I can handle the financial aspect alone, but it's a big place with nearly 3,000 square feet and 5 acres of land, mainly bought for her horse. She's taking the horse with her and boarding it at a barn when she leaves. Update. Day 3. I had a long 3-hour talk with her tonight. We discussed our relationship and what led to everything that happened. It started with her pointing out what I did wrong in our relationship. Lack of communication, spending too much time working and on my phone. I can't deny any of these points. My reason for working so much was to support the family. I run an e-commerce business on the side, and I'm the only one handling customer service, so deals happen around the clock. I'm always on the clock. I should have been better about putting my phone aside and responding to people the next day. The lack of communication was a two-way street, and a perfect example of that is the fact that I had no idea she was unhappy with any of this. She never communicated it to me. She said she felt I would have gotten upset if she told me, but she never gave me a chance to work on it. I know I'm not perfect, and many times I do or say things that she misinterprets as rude. For instance, a week or 2 ago, I was trying to help her with a budget to tackle her financial problems and set up a plan to get her back on track. Just to note, I work in finance and do this kind of stuff for clients all the time. She mentioned she owed me around $1,000 and said she'd pay me back on her next paycheck. But when we went through the transfers to our joint account, it turned out to be over $5,000. I didn't mean to make her feel bad. I just wanted her to realize how much I've been contributing. Unfortunately, she took it as me trying to humiliate her. Maybe my timing was off, but I was only trying to help and ensure our financial situation was okay. We still had a lot to pay for the wedding, and I was being cautious with budgeting to make sure we had enough. It really bothers me that she keeps justifying her actions by blaming my flaws. She tells me she's surprised that I would throw away 7 years of our relationship like this. I have to keep reminding her that I didn't throw it away. She did with her actions. She says I told too many people too quickly, and we could have resolved all of this between us. She also believes she wouldn't have talked to someone else if I was a better listener and communicator. I finally figured out the full extent of the affair, and based on the texts I read, I believe it started about 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure if they had met up outside of work before, but this time, he asked her to the park to play basketball and talk. They ended up making out, and while I'm pretty certain it didn't go further than that yet, I believe it would have in the near future. She insists he's not her boyfriend, and tonight she's gone off somewhere, and I'm guessing it's with him or a girlfriend. Living together is awkward right now, but I hope this gets resolved soon. I think she wants us to get back together and work things out. The main issue was a lack of communication that built up over time while we lived our boring, simple life. We never discussed this problem, and instead of talking to me, she acted out and spoke badly about me behind my back. She can be very sneaky, and I don't know if I can trust her completely again. The easiest thing would be to take her back, but I don't think I'd ever be truly happy doing that. Understanding the real cause has helped me feel better. It gives me a chance to work on my own flaws and communication issues and view things from a different perspective. Today, I hit the gym and plan to stick to a routine. I'm also going back to studying for my CFP designation. I took the week off work to focus on my mental health. I called the wedding venue and officially canceled the date. We got some money back, but we still lost a bit unless someone else takes the date. I updated her parents again to keep them in the loop. They live far away and are probably worried sick. I assure them that everything is calm and fine and they don't need to worry about their daughter. After some research, I found that with the current interest rates, I won't be able to find a comparable house for the same mortgage I'm paying now. Apartments are expensive too. So, I think it's best to try and buy out her share and have her find an apartment. She seems to be okay with it right now. We'll get an appraiser to assess the value and figure out if I can manage half of the equity. Update. It's been almost a month since this whole situation went down, and I want to give you all an update. It's been a whirlwind of emotions and events. I'll be honest, in the few days after it happened, I was a mess, trying to get back with that cheating jerk. It's embarrassing to admit, but it's all part of the process of moving on. In that vulnerable state, I tried everything to make things right and better, but nothing worked. She told me she had to choose between me and him, and she chose him. That's when I finally woke up and realized I had let my self-worth plummet. I needed to step back and focus on myself and what's best for me. It's tough after 7 years of putting someone else first, but that's exactly what I've been doing since. I moved our joint savings to my own checking account. I figured out what was owed to me and transferred half of the balance back to the joint account for her to take. I've been hitting the gym every day since this happened. It not only improves how I look, but it helps me think clearly too. I've been doing some fun stuff lately, like shopping for suits, getting massages, and hanging out with friends and family. Looking back, I realized this relationship was isolating me from the people who care about me, which should have been a major warning sign. I never really did anything for myself. It was always about providing for my partner and our pets. But now, I'm changing that. I started seeing a therapist for the first time, and it's been helpful to talk things out and make decisions. I might even continue therapy after this situation is resolved to keep improving myself. As for the living situation, I'm still in the same house with my ex. She's sleeping in the guest bedroom, and we only communicate about practical stuff like feeding the dogs. I think she's a terrible person, and no matter what I say, she blames me for everything. It's ridiculous because she accused me of being a bad communicator, but then she couldn't communicate her feelings and ended up cheating. It's like she's living in her own delusional world. I've given up trying to reason with her because it's pointless. I've been keeping things moving by putting the house up for sale. I reached out to an agent, and after hearing their proposed sale price, my ex asked me to contact 2 other agents for their opinions. It wasn't fair, but I went ahead and set up all the appointments and met with them. Eventually, we chose the first agent we talked to. We got the pictures taken on Sunday and listed the house for sale that same night. The open house is set for next Saturday, and we're already getting a lot of attention on the real estate websites. My ex will be taking the horse to a barn, though we haven't decided where yet. As for the dogs, I offered to take one or none, but she wants to keep all 3 together, which is fine with me. It allows me to have a fresh start. Surprisingly, about a week ago, I met someone new, and we've been spending a lot of time together. I'm not expecting anything serious, but it's nice to have her company. She's been really supportive since she's been through a similar situation in the past. Talking to a kind, thoughtful, and independent woman has been a real eye-opener for me. It made me realize how much of a narcissist my ex was, so self-centered, manipulative, and dependent. I wish I had listened to the warnings from my family and friends much earlier. I got caught up in a simple routine, not really enjoying life, but just going with the flow because it was comfortable. We had a nice house, lots of land, and great pets, so I didn't want to disrupt things. But now, stepping back and reflecting, I see how much I missed. Some might say I wasted my time, but I'm choosing to see it as a learning experience. From now on, I won't ignore red flags, and I won't fall into the trap of settling for simplicity. I'll make sure to maintain strong relationships with friends and family, valuing their input and support. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who commented on my original post on Reddit. I posted there because I was lost and didn't know what to do. You all, complete strangers, took the time to help me, and that means the world to me. I read every single comment, and they all played a part in getting me to where I am now. I'm excited about the next chapter of my life, wherever it may lead. Thank you all sincerely.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click on the little bell icon for notifications of new stories.